Good afternoon, everybody. We've had a very interesting morning so far, and I'm excited to introduce you to Victor Chaitezvi, which is the youngest business development manager for Microsoft South Africa, Microsoft Global, and he manages a portfolio of 500 million rands, where they invest in startup tech companies, and I just want to hear a little bit more about that, and maybe you can just take us through, what your job entails.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's good to be back home and honored to really be sharing some of my experiences. So my name is Victor Chaitezvi. I am a young African who really is fully focused on building and growth, growth of people, growth of businesses, and I thrive very thoroughly on excellence in whatever I do. So what I do is I am a business development manager at Microsoft South Africa in what they call the Equity Equivalent Program. So as a commitment to the South African government, we decided to fund 500 million rand over a 7-year period into software development companies, small software companies. And so what my role entails being the middleman between Microsoft and those companies and advising the chief executives as well as the directors and operational executives of those companies. And I look after quite a huge chunk of that investment. So looking at millions of dollars each year funding into small companies.
All right, so you travel quite extensively. What do your travels entail? Of course, there's a bit of holiday, rest, and relaxation. But I'd like to know what your travels around the world entail and what have been your experiences around your various destinations.
So a lot of the travels are that, one of my biggest priorities is helping these South African companies grow outside of South Africa, into Africa and into the rest of the world. So part of my travels entail going for conferences, but most of my travels are to go for meetings in the different regions, which are Central America, South America, Middle East, Asia Pacific, and the rest of Africa as well. So essentially, working with companies that own their own IP and they're building their own software that is very much unique in the global scale of things, where their products and solutions are actually gaining quite a lot of interest in the different global regions. So that's what my travel mostly entails, and I try to take a day or two every time I travel.
Okay, that sounds like a dream job, Victor. So I'd like to know, I think a lot of us would like to know, how did you land such a job at such a young age?
Growing up, I've never really wanted to be normal. I believed I'm the only one with this fingerprint, so I didn't want to be like anyone else. I wanted to control my own destiny. So I decided to be very radical at a young age, which is 11. So went through high school, tried to do some amazing things in high school, and then I used to play Zimbabwe cricket. I captained the Zimbabwe school's cricket teams. So then I was supposed to get into the Zimbabwe team. Then I refused to really use cricket as my main career. So what I then went to do is started off a sort of architectural design business straight after high school, which really took off pretty well.
Okay.
And I actually realized back then that sometimes you don't need to be an expert at something to start a business. What you essentially need to understand is the foundation of business. Obviously, a little technical expertise in whatever field or industry is important, but it's not the primary thing. What's really key is your thorough understanding of how business is supposed to work. So after that year, I decided I wanted to go to architectural school, but I decided let me go to business school instead to learn about business. And when I was at business school, I was really, really bored. The first few weeks, because class there was quite not too great. I didn't really enjoy it. So I decided to start different organizations and foundations and sort of businesses whilst I was still in my first year. By the time I finished my undergrad, I had done business quite extensively with the university itself, as well as a whole lot of other businesses out in the market. So what that gave me was a lot of experience at such a young age, because I had done a lot of it. So when I was going for my job, they needed a number of years of experience, and then I was still in university. So from undergrad, I went to do a master's in entrepreneurship, and based on that, I really wanted to come back to Africa, and that's when I bumped into the opportunity at Microsoft, where they called me and asked me to look after some of the partners that we're doing. So it was a bit of a challenge at the beginning, because your age, lack of experience, and the people I was competing against were really, really, really high-end people. But based on the decisions I had started making at a younger age, which is very relevant in our small business environments, that the decisions you start making now are really important, because a lot of the times you find sometimes you can't undo those decisions. So take the extra time to really focus and zone in on making really smart decisions. It's great to take risk, but make sure it's calculated risk.
Okay, so when it comes to calculation, you guys, when you're investing in a company, what are the key things that you look at in terms of the business model? Does it have to be financially based? Does it have to be commercial? Or do you sometimes look at the social impact of a particular tech company?
Yes. So look, it's important to really firstly define the type of ventures that you can find out there in the market. So the first type is like your mom and pop, which is, selling sweets from my gate. And then the second type is lifestyle businesses, which is what I see is very, that's what a lot of small businesses are like in Africa. Lifestyle businesses, give me a good income, take care of my family. And then you find the third one is managed growth. So managed growth, you want to grow, but you don't want to grow too fast. Then the fourth component is you find sort of high growth businesses, which is what's very attractive to investors.
All right.
And then with those four type of ventures, you also need to break down and understand the stage of which those companies would be at. So there's the pre-startup phase, then there's the startup phase, then there's the post-startup phase, and then there's the growth phase. And you also find that a lot of investors have appetite for more of the growth type businesses in Africa. Then you find in other continents, like in the US, there's a whole lot more focus as well on the pre-startup, post-startup type businesses. So it's very important for entrepreneurs to really understand a couple of those things. Then when you're really considering those investments, the first thing you really look at is who is running this business? What are their key priorities? What are their key focuses? Because at the end of the day, it's people who run businesses. In as much as, yes, we can invest in systems and processes and structures, those things fall under some level or form of leadership. So it's very important for us to see, as investors, sort of a well-rounded individual.
So you're saying you check people's Facebook pages, you go on Twitter. How do you follow up on someone's character, their background? What's the process in terms of ascertaining the kind of person that you're dealing with?
So there are a lot of things that can be done. It depends on how much money you want to spend on it. So if you're looking at your big size type investments, there's quite a lot of due diligence that most investors pay for. So you will find, things like criminal checks. We check against your academic backgrounds. And we also, things like social media give you a very good indication of the person. In as much as, yes, as investors, you can't be too discriminatory, but what you really want to do is understand the person at home, at work, and everything else, because when you're investing money into someone, it's a personal thing. It becomes very personal, so I need to understand a number of things, but core to that is the word trust. You need to be able to build a relationship or build relationships with people, and therefore they then trust you with their money.
Okay. We've got a lot of tech entrepreneurs that are developing apps and solutions that are consumer-based as opposed to the enterprise-based. As an investor, which is more attractive, and what do you think would give a company more traction in terms of their track record?
Yes. So you find that in the entrepreneurial landscape, a lot of entrepreneurs really find the path of least resistance, which is the consumer space. All I'm going to do is build an app that does 1, 2, 3, 4. But that used to be a good model a number of years ago. But now you find that the sort of potential to enter into any market, any consumer app market, is now very, very small. I mean, I can get into any market whenever I want to if I get the right people and just tweak my app in many different ways. So, and it's also harder to monetize sort of consumer apps unless now the person you're doing a lot of volumes or quantities. But what a lot of African entrepreneurs, I feel, need to start really focusing on is the enterprise app environment. So enterprise app, you're looking at, for example, I'll use the example of a bank. I want to build something for the bank that helps them process applications 5 times faster than they used to. That's an enterprise app. Or helping a company do business with another company, either saving them cost or making them more money. So as investors, I've seen in the global landscape that a lot more people would invest in your smaller, in your enterprise space, no matter how big or how small you are, as long as you can give or show the sort of profitability and potential sustainability of that app in the enterprise space. I think investors are more geared towards the enterprise space because, let's face it, we'll be very real. App business, online businesses, the competition is becoming too intense. And you have to be extremely radical for you to be able to do well in the market, especially competing globally. But competing globally, sort of your enterprise type apps are key.
All right, so when you look at investors, how has the landscape changed? Because you have investors that invest in manufacturing, that invest in mining. What chance does tech have, in your eyes, on the pot of gold?
So what you're discovering now is previously investors used to be all over the place. I have a chunk of money. All I want to do is invest in companies. But what people started realizing is, in as much as, yes, it was fun doing that, times are changing. And nowadays, investors are getting smarter and smarter, and they want to invest in things aligned to either what they're good at or what they know more of. So you're now finding that a manufacturing investor previously would invest in anything that's very lucrative. But now you find manufacturing investors are really looking into manufacturing companies, or IT investors are really zoning in on IT specific companies. So it's important for sort of small businesses to understand who are the people investing in our industry. What are they investing in? Because investors have also become more and more focused, which is why in our businesses as well, we need to start getting more and more focused because you can't be everything to everybody. So you need to really start zoning in on specifics, find something you're good at, and focus on that. Trust me, you get paid for it.
So how do you think the tech startups can prep for funding? Garth spoke briefly on having a back-end structure, marketing team, HR team, just a normal business setting. What other things do you feel are critical for one to prep for when they're looking for investment?
So there are a lot of things. So depending on your level or the sort of investment that you want, the first point of contact is essentially your business model, and your business model around how will this business work? What is the principle behind this business? And important to the business model is the economic model. So economic model of any business, you're looking at margins versus volumes versus operating leverage. So operating leverage, looking at fixed versus variable costs, how would that work? And then revenue sources or the strength of the revenue streams from an economic model perspective. I think that is very key because as investors all want an ROI, right? And based on the ROI is essentially determined primarily by the money aspect. So entrepreneurs really need to understand their numbers because once you understand your numbers, even operationally, you're able to make better business decisions based on your numbers. So once you understand your business model, it's essentially now about business functions. So you need, I remember one of the comments from, I think it was one of the judges or Garth, was around putting your house in order. So putting your house in order, making sure that there's an integration between marketing, sales, HR, finance, PR, whatever business functions are relevant to your venture, making sure that that's in place because investors really are also looking at some level of stability because we as entrepreneurs always think, look, entrepreneurship is this random, unorganized thing, whereas investors look at you as if you're a big business. So as entrepreneurs, don't think of yourself as a small business. Yes, in as much as you are a small business, think like a big business. Put the right systems, processes, structures in place for you to do business with big business. So I think that's the sort of investor approach to things.
Okay, so I know you've got other business interests. How did you manage to leverage your ideas for capital to be able to start up something and get it in motion?
Yeah. So one thing I'm also bumping into is the fact that money makes money. So entrepreneurs who've really tried and tested their ideas at their own expense, who've put skin in the game, usually get more funding as compared to people with ideas that they've not implemented that they go after. So I remember when I was in university, I identified an opportunity at the university where I was in a class of like 400 people, and it would take us a month or two to get our assignments back. The reason why, because it was a whole manual process. Yeah. So I thought of an idea of automating the whole process. But I actually didn't have the money. I didn't have to start with. So what I did was I went through a lot of thinking, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs, we don't do much, is we don't take time to really think. In as much as we think of our ideas, we don't spend enough time thinking about the opportunity, really drilling down into the opportunity and all. So what I then did was I mapped out my value network or my value chain, both upstream and downstream. I understood who my customers are going to be, my suppliers, what I needed to get my product up and ready. What I then did, I went to my customer and said, look, Mr. Customer, I sold you the idea and you like it. Can I have something in writing that you would like to purchase this thing if I build it? Then the customer said, yes, it's a key need, so we need that. So I took that, went to the supplier and said, Mr. Supplier, look, I've got this thing from the customer, and but I don't have the equipment. You know how much your equipment costs, which were things like barcode printers and scanners and stuff. And then I told them, look, I will give you the exclusive right to this idea of wherever I implement, it's your hardware that I'll use. And then they said, okay, cool, let's give you a few devices to play with. But I didn't have dev staff. So I went to my lecturers and I said, look, I'll employ you guys, but I don't have the money. And here's the potential, here's the sales, and here's the customer order, and here's the supplier commitment. All we need is this piece, and we'll do a profit share. And everything then came together without any funding from that perspective. And since then, there's always been a mindset, even when I speak to people looking for funding, is what have you leveraged? Have you tried to leverage anything? Have you exhausted all the sources that you can exhaust? Because the thought of getting money as a small business is a cool thought. But we're not willing to put in that much work. So first thing you should ever do before you speak to any investor is tell them how much you've tried to leverage. This is the kind of work I've done, but I've now hit a blocker. I've already implemented, I've tested my idea, and it works, and I've got customer orders, and I've got those sort of things. So I think that was one case where I used the power of leveraging, and you find that as well happening a lot these days when you realize as an entrepreneur that I can't get any funding. So what's next? Entrepreneurs make a plan. That's essentially what it's about.
So what would you say are the best funding models for Africa? The market is relatively slower than the global landscape. So you have that much more time to work on your business and make something out of it. What do you think is the best model for getting funding from investors, from family, from friends?
So I think depending on where you are as a business, remember the stages I spoke about. Because if you're at a pre-startup type phase, you find it very hard to have funding discussions. If you're still at the idea phase, you find it very hard to have discussions. But what I'm seeing now is a lot of businesses, even multinationals, really starting to pull out programs that, excuse me, that really help drive funding models. So you find multinationals coming in, wanting to give back to the African economy. So they have programs specific to their line of work where they're dishing out whatever is involved in their line of work. And you also see a lot of people now not giving actual hard cash, actually giving you the things that you need. So it's important for entrepreneurs to be very specific that, look, sir, I'm looking for 10,000 Rand in monetary value, but this 10,000 Rand is going to go to these specific components of my business. Because what you then find is people will say, no, I don't need to give you money, but I can give you X. I've got this, I've got Y. So I think there's a big mindset shift that needs to happen around funding, where you really need to think about, before you get to the funding talk, think about where exactly is this going to be funded? So can you help me with this? Okay, as a last resort, I actually need money.
If any of you have any further questions, you can meet up with Victor at lunchtime. He'll be here for the rest of the day, so feel free to catch up with him. Thank you very much, Victor.
Thanks, Wisdom. Thanks, Steve.